Hello, everybody. Hope you had a fantastic holiday season and New Year's and all of that stuff. It's been a while since I've made anything, and I see Cap and Eric are doing that whole Marvel Mania thing. So, while you are watching commentaries for various Marvel movies, I figured I'd play some Yu-Gi-Oh! I love Yu-Gi-Oh! As in, the anime's I mean, I've watched all of them. I don't love all of them. I have very hit or miss opinions about those things. But I love the card game. And right now I've been playing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist. And my roommate and I sat together and we made up a Cyber Dragon deck. I did the first draft of it, he did the second draft of it, and this is what came of it. When I played tournaments, when I used to play with friends and such, I always used a Cyber Dragon deck, but it's been a while since I've actually done any of that, so I hadn't known what some of the newer cards were, and so this is why this is a little bit different than the standard deck I physically own. I've already played this game, so right now you're just watching the video, and this is a post-recording. Basically, in this game, if you go through the campaign, you can get to play all the well, not all of you get to play like the highlight duels of every series for the most part, and then you have to go back and do it all again by doing like reverse duels. And I did all of the regular duels for, I think, the whole game. And I went back and I'm starting to do the reverse duels. And what you're about to see are me in the middle of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds doing some reverse duels. I have the Stardust Dragon deck. There's a Cyber Dark deck here. This is basically just me looking through some of my decks right now just so you can see what else I had. I also had a Dragon deck back there. I love dragons. Blue Eyes White Dragon's my favorite card in the game, but it's not very useful, which is why I use a Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragons are basically a Blue Eyes deck, but effective. Alright, so in essence here, there's going to be definitely some mistakes and stuff along the way because it's been a while since I've actually played and this is a new deck. But the go-to strategy I've developed with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it's kind of a numbers game, and I don't mean that in life points. I don't think life points ultimately matter until you hit 0 or that you don't have enough to sacrifice. Every card in this deck is built to either take cards away from the opponent, add cards to my hand, or some combination of the two. This is basically a deck that's all about stability, protection, and then OTK, relentless attacking. So it's worked pretty well so far. I haven't lost a duel yet with this deck, but I've only played 5 or 6 of them using it. And again, still getting used to it. My friend did the second draft of it. He's much better at using this deck than I am. But again, I'm getting there. It's a fun game, though. If you haven't actually bought Legacy of the Duelist, I'd recommend checking it out. I think it's only like $20 on the PlayStation Store. But it's a lot of fun. And for whatever reason, I just really can't stop playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I've played it ever since I was a kid. And it's kind of obsessive at this point. It's a little bit hard to play this game and do commentary at the same time, because what that inevitably devolves into is me reading out what I'm doing, and sometimes that gets overdramatic and kind of dumb. So instead of that, I think the post-game commentary is a little bit easier. You can read the cards at your own pace, you can tell me how shitty I'm doing, or how well I'm doing, and all that stuff. And also, in the moment when annoying things happen, like getting rid of one of my favorite monsters or whatever, there's a tendency to curse. So I try not to I try not to record as I'm playing, because then you might get some visceral reactions that Cat might not want on the channel. So yeah, this is a really fun game. If anyone that actually still likes playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Or you need another outlet for it instead of going to tournaments and stuff, I think this is a good way to go. It's just a lot of fun. They've got most of the cards. They don't have Cyber Dragon Infinity. They don't have a good number of newer cards and more Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal era stuff, but for the most part, they've got everything that you'd want. Then I imagine there's going to be more downloadable stuff where you can get more cards and such. But for the most part, they've got everything you'd want. It's not top tier tournament competitive kind of gameplay. It's good casual fun. And that's mostly why anyone really plays Yu-Gi-Oh! At this point, I imagine. But no, I really enjoy this game. I think it's just a really good time pass. So, This is kind of a fun duel. I like going back and watching this one in particular because Yusei decimates me for the opening, and then I pull a pretty sizable comeback. I think I'm about to... What am I about to do here? I'm about to pull a trick here where that's gonna drop me down to like 600 life points, and then I'm gonna stay at like 600 for I think the whole duel. I may like lose 100 in between there, but for the most part, it's going to be a very come from behind sort of victory. And again, there will be mistakes made because I still haven't like used this deck properly. It's still something I'm practicing with. Also, while you're listening to this, I apologize for the mic quality. My old mic is broken, which is the good mic that I use to record audio for analysis videos and stuff like that. So I'm just using the built-in microphone on my laptop, and I'm gonna have to like play with or adjust the sound and stuff to make sure it doesn't sound completely awful. But hopefully that's alright, and hopefully I'll get something new along the way. Panzer Dragon's a really helpful card. It's not something I knew existed until I started flipping through different booster packs in the actual game. And I never really used a DNA Surgery card before, but it's really useful to summon the Chimeritic Fortress Dragon, which I'm going to do pretty soon here. Also, Exceed summoning things, not a thing I usually did, but now I kind of had to get used to newer cards. The constant upscaling of Yu-Gi-Oh! Makes it so you have to either keep up or you will just lose. If you, no, like seriously, if you go back to original Yu-Gi Kaiba, like generation cards, they're not good decks. They're really not. Like, again, I love Blue Eyes White Dragon, and recently we've gotten some good support cards for the Blue Eyes White Dragon, but it's a straight offense power deck. It's not very helpful in the long run. It involves losing a lot of cards, so you have to win quickly. There's not a lot of stability to it. There's a lot of luck involved. It's not a deck where in any given situation you have something to do with some sort of reaction, and that's ultimately why I prefer the Cyber Dragons. Because with the Cyber Dragon deck, you can be on offense if you want, and you can be on defense if you want. If your opponent is highly offensive, then you have the perfect ways to counter. It's a deck entirely built on reacting to your opponent with equal pressure in the opposite direction. So, no matter what cards I draw, I can always do something. There is definitely a little bit of luck involved, and it's not a perfect deck. It's definitely not a top tier deck or anything, but like for situations like these, I can summon powerful monsters quickly, or I can make my opponent lose cards when I need to like break for time. Cards like Cyber Valley and Cyber Dragon Core are ridiculously helpful. And Cyber Dragon deck wasn't always this way. It used to be kind of dull and kind of repetitive, like when you got Cyber Laser Dragon and Cyber Barrier Dragon. Those were very useless. To summon a Cyber Laser Dragon, you basically you lose 3 cards, and then if someone took out your Laser Dragon with like a Bottomless Trap Hole or something, you're down like 4 cards. It's not a helpful system. So this is a little bit better, I think. And this is a pretty fun match. I think part of the enjoyment of this game is that you can have duels that will last forever. I didn't get this on recording. This was one of the first games I played with this with my dragon deck. But I had a card that made one designated dragon invincible, so I never lose life points if it's attacked, and it's never destroyed in battle, but it also never inflicts damage on the opponent. And I got stuck in this loop when I was playing this game, where we went back and forth for like 60 or 70 turns, and no one was losing any life points because they couldn't destroy my Blue Eyes White Dragon, and I wasn't losing life points, and every time I tried to attack with the card, I would destroy their monsters, but they wouldn't lose any life points. So we had to like, it was a perfect stalemate. It came down to like the last 2 or 3 cards in our decks. It was kind of awesome. And that's the fun of this game. It's not like hyper tournament competitive. It's just kind of almost Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime level crazy and convoluted and lasts forever. My friend who helped me build this deck has this thing where he's like, part of the appeal of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that compared to something like Pokemon or Magic, it's not restrictive at all. there were so many cards, and there were so many ways to play, and there were so many ways to access cards, and there were so many cards being printed constantly, that you could almost do anything in a Yu-Gi-Oh game. Not in the same way as Magic or with Pokemon. Pokemon has a very strict set of rules, so does Magic, and then Magic cards are ridiculously expensive, even in Yu-Gi-Oh standards. So it's just more fun to have this game played with a bunch of friends, because it usually just involves insanity in all directions. Again, that's why I love it. It's so much fun. I don't know if I get my Cyber End Dragon out in this particular duel. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But there's definitely a good comeback here. Like I said, I'm still only stuck at 600 life points. And I am slowly but surely decimating Yusei's resources. I hate that Junk Archer so much. It's like the worst card in this duel, mostly because it's so helpful to Yusei. Every time he uses it, I have to worry about it staying on the field, because it's going to remove one of my cards from play, and if it does that and attacks, I'm dead. So I keep having to contrive ways to get that monster off the field. Here comes one of the big contrivances that kind of feels like a waste of resources, but is almost necessary, where I come out with another Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, just so that card is off the field. So these effects that they do to summon cards is cool the first time, and the second time, and the third time, but after a while they get kind of repetitive and kind of boring. If you do Chimera Tech Overdragon, and you have to remove from play 10 cards, it takes forever for that thing to get summoned. And then there are certain monsters that have animated attacks, and there are certain monsters that don't. I don't know if in this recording you get to see any of them, because these are later cards, and only the big title monsters get that. Dark Magician has an animated attack, Elemental Hero Neos has an animated attack, Stardust Dragon, Red Dragon Archfiend, Blue Eyes, those kind of cards get cool attacks. And nothing else really. I kind of wish Cyber End Dragon did. Zane was a pretty big character for but for the initial setup with GX. It's a little disappointing not to see a big animated 3-headed dragon. And that, for that matter, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon doesn't have an animation. This is the part where, again, I keep doing things that I ultimately could have done better, but it's sort of the hindsight thing, and I wasn't sure how long I was going to last with only 500 life points at this point, and Yusei having 10 times that number. So it's definitely a very dangerous situation to be in, and I was thinking about summoning out the Chimera Tech Overdragon, but I didn't have a Cyber Dragon on the field. I did have one in the graveyard, but he also had these other monsters that were very clearly going to take me out, so I figured at this point, what the hell, go ahead and summon it. I wish I didn't drop down the Mirror Force, because when you summon a Chimera Tech Overdragon, you have to get rid of all the cards in your spell and trap card zone, which is irritating. I probably shouldn't have wasted the Dark Hole like that, but hey, it got some work done, I guess. And ultimately, if you're going to summon a Chimera Tech Overdragon, you better make sure you're going to win. Especially if you're going to use Fusion Overload, because that removes from play pretty much your entire arsenal of monsters. And I did it a little bit too early in this one, because I only got 5 or 6 cards out of play. Chimera Tech Overdragon's true power rests in having a ton of cards on the field or in the graveyard. And of course, this is a very close duel at this point, but the fact that I couldn't just kill him in that one shot shows that maybe I should have waited or held off on some of this. Again, hindsight, but even so, it's a fun duel, and I still enjoy just regularly playing, as opposed to constantly trying to build top tier decks and winning in one-shot kills and stuff like that. That's not necessarily the fun of this game. And my phone just went off, sorry about that. There is a winter weather alert here. So maybe I get snowed in and get to play Yu-Gi-Oh! All day. That'd be fun. I'm thinking about, like, perfecting this deck a little bit more and then maybe buying all the cards that I don't already have as part of this deck and just, like, come up and just have, like, a physical this is my deck thing. So, like, every now and then when I'm just walking down the street and someone challenges me to a duel, just like what happens in real life all the time, I will have a deck ready. No, I'm kidding. But no, it would be kind of cool to own all the cards that make for my ideal deck. And again, this is not the ideal deck, it's getting there. This is still, again, a bit of a first draft. I only have one Cyber End Dragon in my extra deck in this one. I should add a second one in. There's only 14 cards in the extra deck, I might as well. I might also... I don't know if I want to take out one Chimeritic Fortress Dragon. I don't think I've ever had a need for all three of them. But I do run 3 DNA surgeries, so maybe that's partly why it's useful to have 3 of those in there too. I hate that card so much. It makes it very difficult to do a straight-on attack. And Foolish Burial is very helpful. You never know when you need something like that. And it's always helpful to have a Cyber Dragon core in your graveyard. You never know when there's going to be a situation where you need to summon a Cyber Dragon because of its effect. And this guy completely forgot that I can keep attacking his monsters because of Chimeritek's ability. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed that duel. And now for the second one. This one was a little bit more difficult, and I made even more dumb mistakes in this one, but again, still interesting, still fun to watch. See, this is what I mean with this deck. I just drew a pretty poor hand in the sense that I have no monsters and no spell cards, just a bunch of traps. And drawing that Cyber Dragon was helpful, but the fact that I can still do something despite having no balance at all whatsoever in my hand, that is ideally why I like using this deck, is that in any situation I can do something. Even if I didn't draw that Cyber Dragon, I still could have fortified myself in case of another attack. And if he summoned something stronger, if I gave him that opportunity, I would have ways to take it out, because they were all pretty good trap cards. The one other annoying thing about this game is that it's very forceful about the rules of the game. So, like, if you have some sort of like trap or quick play spell or quick play effect, it will keep pestering you at every phase. Do you want to activate? 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 It's really irritating. It would be better if when the activation was possible, they just kept a little effect icon active on the card, and it was up to you to remember whether or not you can activate it or if you want to activate it. The rules are almost too much of a crutch in this, and that makes the flow a little bit worse. Also, that's kind of a waste of Mirror Force, especially considering I had 2 Calls of the Haunted there, and Cyber Dragon in your graveyard is not necessarily a bad thing. Again, still getting used to this deck. And here's another thing that I didn't realize was anywhere near as useful as it eventually turned out to be. It's the Cyber Dragon Nova. A good old instant fusion, teamed up with a Panzer Dragon and my Cyber Dragon, and you get Cyber Dragon Nova, which is perfect in every situation. If it gets destroyed by an effect, you can summon out a Machine Fusion. You can detach one of its Exceed pieces, and you can summon another monster, or you can get rid of a Cyber Dragon and double its attack points. It's just a mountain of cool effects, and very helpful for this particular deck. Cyber Dragon Infinity, not so much. It feels like it's like a one step too many. It's like Blue Eyes Shining Dragon. We're like, hey, if you have it on the field at the perfect time, it's kind of unstoppable. But having it on the field at the right time you have to build your entire deck around, and that doesn't leave much room for adaptation. Again, that's why I like using just regular standard Cyber Dragon deck, and also without the Cyber Dragon Infinity, because it's just a good reactive deck. Also, probably shouldn't have wasted the Dust Tornado there. I could have just summoned a second monster. It wouldn't have been a big deal. He has the effect to do that, so whatever. And there'll be a couple mistakes here where I'm not entirely sure about the rules. Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules can be kind of vague sometimes, and I wasn't entirely sure what applied and what didn't in this version of the game, so I made a couple mistakes down the line with this one. Yusei has a really good deck. 5Ds is not a perfect series, it's a really good series, and I just wasted Bottomless Trap Hole. I kinda didn't need to do that either. It's still really early. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds is a pretty good series. The first season is arguably the best in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And then it's not bad as it goes on, but it gets more convoluted as it goes on, and Yusei never really has much of a challenge or an arc because he never really loses any duels, at least not in any substantial character way. But he is probably the best protagonist. He's my favorite protagonist in the series. Much better than Jaden, much better than Yugi, and it's a good deck. It's just got some annoying tendencies. The whole idea behind his deck is that he just built it with a bunch of cards that he found. There was no real system to it. It was very much a commentary on how getting cards is difficult, and yet his deck is good enough to have a theme. And you can't really blame the show for that because it is about selling cards, and so if you want to sell cards, it's easier if a deck has a theme, and a main character's deck should probably have a theme. I just think from a writing standpoint, it might have been better to have him build his deck's theme as the show went on, as opposed to having this perfect setup right away of junk cards. They should have been literal junk cards, not or they should have been metaphoric junk cards, not literal junk type monsters. Even so, it's a pretty good deck, and it's got some very good uses when you throw in Stardust Dragon and all of its numerous variations. I have a Stardust Dragon deck in this game designed, I've just never really used it. Stardust Dragon's a really good card, though. It's a really helpful card. And not even its stronger counterparts, because it's got a lot of them, but just basic Stardust Dragon, summon that card out, have it sacrifice itself to stop an effect and come back at the end of the turn. It's a really good effect. It's a really good card. It's kind of the happy middle of dragon type cards, I think. Because dragon decks tend to be all about the power. And I just wasted another Call of the Haunted. There is a much easier, more eloquent way to win this duel. And I kind of didn't do it. Also just removed both 2 cards from play at that turn. That's not necessarily a good thing. Oh, good old Cyber Dragon Core. So unbelievably helpful. Cyber Repair Plant is also useful. And the best thing about a lot of these Cyber Dragon cards is that they can all be called Cyber Dragon. No more of the Proto-Cyber Dragon nonsense. I don't hate Proto-Cyber Dragon. It's just when you have Cyber Dragon Dree and Cyber Dragon Core, it's just not very useful to have a card whose only effect is to be called Cyber Dragon. Kind of makes you wonder whether or not Yu-Gi-Oh! Has gotten too powerful with its card types in the same way Dragon Ball Z characters have gotten too powerful. I don't know if it's quite as bad as what Dragon Ball Z has eventually become, but it is pretty bad. The scaling is kind of insane. Good old Ring of Destruction. And he destroyed my card anyway. but that's okay, because Cyber Repair Plant. And Cyber Dragon Dree. It's a very helpful card. And this is also not exactly a great opportunity to use Chimera Tech over Dragon. Again, ideally, you want to use that card when you have more Cyber Dragons in your graveyard, and when the duel is not like this close. It's a card you bring out when you know you're going to win. And it should have more attack points than this. Usually, Chimera Tech over Dragon in a more competitive zone would come out and have like 10,000 attack points. It's not very hard to do that with that card. But it was, again, just poorly strategized in this. It's been a long time since I played Yu-Gi-Oh! In any sort of competitive way, so I guess that's sort of the issue at this point. But we've almost beat him. He's only got 200 life points left. Or 700. It's hard to read the screen the way it is and with the numbers the way they're written. It actually might have been a smart idea to go ahead and summon the Panzer Dragon with that card with instant fusion. I could have won this turn. Well, the ever so helpful Cyber Dragon has also been drawn. Again, should have summoned Panzer Dragon, and I didn't, but I should have. At this point, I'm just elongating a pretty easy duel to win. Oh, there I go. Yusei is pretty much out of resources at this point. He hit hard early on, and then because I had all his defenses set up, it was pretty easy to bite back. See, and I didn't need to do this. I could have just attacked with this card, and it gets destroyed at the end of the turn. So even if like he places something else, I could have destroyed one of his cards on the field because of its effect. And this is kind of a waste also. I don't really need Fortress Dragon. I thought I had DNA Surgery on the field, and I don't. I clearly don't, but I think that's what I thought happened. And I was going to get his monster off the field too, but I didn't. And then I wasted the repair plan. This is not a good duel. This is a I'm winning, but I'm winning by not really knowing what I'm doing. And that's not a good way to duel. You shall see more eloquent, more fully formed duels as this game goes on and when I make more videos with it. If I make more videos with it. Because like I said, new deck, still getting used to it. I just lost my best line of defense from a stupid move like that. It was kind of... I can't believe I did that, but whatever. And this is where I think I figure out what I'm supposed to be doing at this point. Good old Cyber Dragon special summon. Now, I could have just summoned Nova, but I felt like doing the Power Bond Twin Dragon instead, just because winning a duel with Power Bond is so much more fun. But you can see where this is going, right? Because Twin Dragon, double its attack points, can attack twice, doesn't read much explanation after that. Yep, well thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.